Before we get started, let's go over a couple tools that you're going to need for the process. You're going to need a ratchet. A pair of pliers is going to help. You're also going to need an 8mm socket. There we go, 8mm. An extension for your ratchet with a pivot at the end. Some anti-seize compound. This will be good for your spark plugs so they don't freeze up the next time you change them. And most importantly, a 12-point 14mm thin-walled socket. Spark plug socket. I see the thin wall. I got this from ECS Tuning, but there's other places that have it. And I tried ones from O'Reilly's and AutoZone, and those didn't work, so I went ahead and spent the little bit extra money and got this one. It's pretty nice. So before I get started, I go ahead and put a little anti-seize lubricant on my spark plugs and went ahead and made sure that they were gapped correctly. Rock Auto directed to have these gapped to 0.032, but there was other options that you did not have to gap. They were already preset when you ordered them. So I went ahead and double checked. Most of them were pretty close to that spec when I got them, so never hurts to double check. Okay, so now we're ready to start taking apart a couple pieces before we can actually get to the spark plugs. The first thing we're going to do is take off the cover for the cabin air filter. You're going to use the 8mm socket to remove 6 screws for the cabin air filter. And I went ahead and used a electric gun for this instead of the ratchet. It was just faster, but you could use a ratchet for this. Okay, and then you just go ahead and pull that off. This is also a good time to inspect your cabin air filter. If you haven't changed it in a while or you're not too sure, just go ahead and get a new one. It's a great time to change it. And now we're gonna go ahead and move towards the cowl, kind of covering the engine cover. Before you get started, make sure to disconnect a sensor right there. This will be on the passenger side. And then another sensor that's on the driver's side. These are connected. You could pull these off from the cowl, but personally it's easy just to take them off like that. And then go ahead and pull this tab back, and you're going to undo a couple clips and remove this cover. The covers are hiding a screw on each side of the cowl that you'll need to remove with that 8mm socket again before you can actually pull this off. There's the screw right there. One thing I forgot to actually do when I was taking these off was a little friendly heads up. Before you take it off, try to put a rag or a towel underneath the area where there's a lot of a gap. Personally, I've dropped one of those down there and it's really hard to get back out. You may not be able to get it back out, so just keep that in mind. Once you have the bolts out, you're good to go ahead and pull out the cowl cover, and this will give you full access to remove the engine cover. One thing I did is I forgot that there's actually some tabs holding the wiring to the cover, to the cowl, so don't forget about those before you pull it off, or else it won't actually want to come off. Okay, so now we've got all that out of the way. The 2015s do have a little line that connects to the engine cover. I'm not sure if any other ones do, if they change that or not, but go ahead and unplug that, and then go ahead and you'll need to pull off this wiring from its recessed area on top of the engine cover. This is where the pliers are going to come in handy because they're held on by a couple clips on the far side of it. You just take your time and try not to break them. You can go ahead and pull those out. and then just pull up on the engine cover and it comes right off, and this is going to expose the spark plugs. So you have your ignition coil. Just go ahead and pull up on the cover on that, and that'll pull off the electrical component, and set that aside, and then just wiggle on top of the ignition coil, pulling up, and the coil will come right out. It may be stuck a little bit, just keep wiggling and pulling up and it'll come out eventually. And if you look, now that we've got the ignition coil out, you can see the spark plug. And this is definitely where that thin-walled 12-point socket is going to come in handy. I've tried other sockets, the normal thickness ones, and I couldn't get it out until I got this. So go ahead and with your ratchet and extension, take out the socket. And then with your new one in your socket, go ahead and carefully put it in there. Try not to drop it or hit it up against the side wall of that. And go ahead and put it in, snug it up. Go ahead and put your ignition coil back in. Don't forget to plug in your electrical connection, and then you can get it pretty close, and then you actually will close the cover, and the cover will actually lock that component into place with the ignition coil. And then you're ready to continue down to the other spark plugs. And then to put all the other components that we took off before, that's just the reverse order, and that's it.